Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am authorized to assure you that so far there is no reasonable cause for alarm. The rumors of invading armies and mass destruction are based on hysteria and are absolutely false. I repeat, these rumors are absolutely false.
Welcome to Thoughtspeak, a podcast dedicated to the discussion of K. Applegate's 1996 book series, Animorphs. My name is Coleman.
And my name is Mitchell, and tonight we have a very special program for you, because not only are we reviewing book number 30, The Reunion, but I am proud to say that this episode is sponsored in part by our Patreon subscribers. And we actually have a list of those people that we're going to name off to thank right now.
Thank them.
Absolutely. This is something new that we're going to start doing from here on out because you kind people have been nice enough to throw a little bit of your money at us whenever we release one of these episodes. And boy, that really makes us want to get them out a little bit faster, I'll say. But
absolutely. For
the time being, we just want to thank, and these are the names that we get on our Patreon, so some of them might not be real names. Case in point, The Geek Critique, thank you. Spencer, thank you. Empathetic Twitch, thank you. Dan, thank you, Dan. Justin Elliott, thank you too. And last but not least, Miss Jennifer Baker, thank you. Interesting point here. Jennifer, you are our only $5 subscriber currently, and as you might or might not be aware of, one of the rewards for $5 subscribers is that you get invited to a post-show discussion with me and Coleman. So you being the only subscriber there that gets that perk, I don't know how we're going to make this work, but I have your email address, so maybe we'll send you an email, a follow-up after the episode, and get your thoughts. Who knows?
I want to know what she thinks of this book in particular. And, maybe we'll start relaying those thoughts in the next episode.
There you go. This could quickly turn into, like, the Jennifer Baker Spotlight Hour, because we don't have any other $5 subscribers right now. So you want to get included in this post-show discussion, chime in.
If more people jump on this, it's basically like becoming a co-host of Thoughtspeak, as far as I'm concerned. So that post-show discussion, it probably can get pretty wild in the future. That's all I have to say.
Who knows? Every topic is on the table. Nothing's off topic or nothing's taboo.
There's no taboo in the post-show discussion. Just nothing. I will also say that I don't know if our Patreon subscribers noticed this, but we marked our subscriber levels. So we have, what'd you say? We have 9 people total. So we have 8 Jed controller subscribers, and we have 1 Taxon controller. So if you've got a favorite alien species, if you want to support the Empire, jump on there and check out and see what level of dedication you bring to the Yeerk forces.
What kind of host body are you? Okay, so while you're pondering that, and while you're heading over to our Patreon page to pledge us lots of your good green money, we're going to go ahead and we've got a Facebook message from a Connor Muldowney that we always love reading. And he says, I understand all good things come to an end, but I just wanted to know, will the Animorphs Podcast continue after all the books in the series have been reviewed? If not, I can just switch over to one of your other podcasts you mentioned, but I was curious now that you guys have been all the way up to the 3rd Megamorphs book. And that's actually a really good, relevant question is, what are our plans for after this? And we've hinted at some things and we've talked about some ideas, but that's about as vague as we want to keep it right now, is that we've got some ideas for after the series ends, right?
Yeah, we're not ending at 54. We have some very specific things that we want to do. It's not just going to be 1 or 2 episodes, and we think it's going to get, once we talk to 54, and once we talk about book 54, things are going to get dark here in Thoughtspeak, and I feel like afterwards, there's going to be just a breath of fresh air, a relief of tension, and just some levity brought back to the podcast with what our plans are currently. And it very relevant to Animorphs, the future of Animorphs, possible. We've already had one pretty big guest on the show as far as one of the authors of Animorphs. I would say that there's a possibility we go bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to, no offense to our friends and family, but I would love to increase the quality of our guests that we book. I've got some things in the works. I'm trying to get some very interesting people.
No offense to Michael Grant.
No. Michael Grant was an excellent, like, imagine if we were, like, going fishing, we caught Michael Grant. That's like catching the marlin right away, you know? Mm-hmm. That's my fishing
analogy.
But
there's always bigger fish in the sea.
We can get two of them with him and his wife.
No, we still got some cool stuff lined up. So do not unsubscribe right after you hear that last book, because I think there's a future in the podcast, and it's gonna be a ton of fun.
Oh, absolutely, there'll be more. So. You know, that said, though, feel free to jump over and check out any of our other podcasts. Now is a great time to mention that I've been reviewing some TV shows that have been running currently with my other buddy, and those are Talking Evil Dead and Talking Preacher, both fantastic shows, and I'm really looking forward to doing more of those. Another big thing I want to mention is that I was recently a guest on another podcast called the Literate Gamer Podcast, where we talked about games and game theories and stories. Particularly the episode that I was in, we chatted about Pokemon. So if you're into, I don't know, listening to a couple 30-something dudes reminisce about their time playing Pokemon, it might be up your alley.
Yeah, and I checked out a few more of their podcasts outside of yours. And they cover like Mass Effect's story across the trilogy, and just a bunch of some Zelda stuff. They're pretty interesting.
Yeah, they're really into Monster Hunter and the Persona series. Like, they would not shut up about it.
Fair enough.
I made the mistake of saying I haven't played those games, and they're like, "Oh, well, this is what you do." Blah blah blah.
You hunt monsters and you have a personality. We get it.
Pretty much. But
anyway.
Yeah. You said you had something you wanted to read.
Yeah. I have a comment on our website, thoughtspeakcast.com, from a Vanessa Lawrence Fusel. Hey, I just want to say thank you so much for still doing these, even though it looks like there's a few comments in the last few episodes, because I found you guys just this week. I've already binged through most of your episodes. I loved Animorphs as a little girl, and I still love it now, and you guys always bring up interesting and amazing conversation points about the characters, the world building, the plots themselves, as well as good points about morality, alien biology, and cultures, and even psychology. Not to mention that you guys are just downright hilarious duo, and your jokes always make me laugh so hard. And not to be creepy or weird here, but I've fallen asleep listening to you guys more than once lately. Too long to read. I love it all, and please don't stop, and don't ever think nobody likes them or anything. Heart, 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 heart. That's it.
I hope she phonetically spelled heart, heart, heart.
No, it's little emoji hearts.
Okay, well, wonderful. That's an amazingly nice message. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, we need to start putting on some white noise at the end of each episode if people are falling asleep to this.
Sure, and then we can just keep rolling. You know how we generally chat for a couple minutes afterwards after we're done. We can just leave it rolling then and record all that with some white noise under it.
I think we could get into some dream therapy too, some subversive advertising. There's just a lot. There's a lot we could bring to this podcast that we're leaving on the table.
Check out our Patreon.
Patreon.com/Thoughtspeak.
We talk like ghosts when we're trying to influence people.
Also, there's a ghost in your room. Wake up.
So that was a wonderful review, and I'd love to hear some more comments similar to that one. They don't all have to be that nice, really. I mean, we love it when they are, but
they could be way meaner than that, and we'd still read them.
Any users, tonight we are talking Animorphs number 30, The Reunion. The Reunion Special is what this one felt like, to be honest.
No, this is a really interesting book, and let's jump right into the design.
Yeah, the cover of this one is a bit strange. Right off the bat, it prominently features the Roach Morph, which we've had in a bunch of books. Haven't seen it on a cover yet, obviously. A little disappointed they didn't go with Marco going to goat on the cover of this.
Maybe it just didn't look as good, or they realized they'd gone this far without doing cockroach, and that's so important to them. I mean, kind of makes sense.
That's true, and there's something to be said about, Marco, given everything he's going through throughout the course of this book and series, to be compared or likened to a cockroach is kind of probably symbolic. I don't know.
Maybe, I guess. I didn't really get that read.
Hey, I'm diving deep, bro, because my cover is telling me to watch Animorphs on TV. It ripped through the cover to tell me that.
I never did really get what that design was supposed to be, but I guess you're right. It's like somebody ripped the book up.
Yeah.
Good job, design team. You're still nailing it. I do like the cover in general, though. I like when they go for these like muted colors with a bit of orange or some other color splashed in. I mean, it just makes the cover look more modern. And they go for kind of a sunsetty cloud background.
Well, the dingy brown and blackish really kind of like accentuates the colors on the roach. And that third, the in between, the most middle morph there, it looks like one of those realistic Pokemon.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like a creepy one.
Yeah.
And the cover quote is, "Marco must make the ultimate sacrifice."
That's more relevant than those are usually. I wouldn't call it the ultimate sacrifice. Sounds like he's going to kill himself or something.
Well, it's very broad, but it's fitting for the story. So there's that.
The inside cover is, again, strange. Did he ever morph cockroach in like his bedroom during this book?
No, he didn't morph. Because I was paying attention. I was like, ooh, when's he going to crawl by a picture of his mom on his nightstand? It mentions the picture of his mom on his nightstand, but he's never morph roach.
Oh, that's that black.
By it.
That's what that black blob is. I didn't even realize. I don't think that's a picture of his mom. I think that's his mom in a mirror. Because look at it. Yeah, to me, it's on mine, and I don't know if it's same in yours, but it's like you can barely make out human features in it. Like, honestly, it's hard
I don't
to see.
know. Maybe the quality is faded on yours because I can very clearly see a woman's face.
Really? Because mine seriously, like mine is like the rest of the picture is perfect, but the reflection is like very dark and like no contrast. It's really weird. But anyway, but I think it's a mirror because it's attached to the wall. It's not on his night table or whatever. And there's a mostly empty glass of like bourbon in front of it.
I don't know. What say you, listener? Is this a photograph, or is it a reflection in a mirror? I guess I never thought of it that way.
If it's a photograph, it's got one of the most boring backgrounds in the world, and she's like Facebook profile looking away from the camera. I really think it's a reflection.
Well, again,
plus whose drink is that?
This could just be the marketing team hearing, okay, the photo of a woman in a bedroom, there's a roach, and there we go. That's all we need to know.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
why are there keys on the thing? Why is there an empty, drink? Why is there a candlestick stand?
Yeah, hypothetically, this is Marco's bedroom. Why is he drinking bourbon with 2 rocks in it?
Yeah, it makes no sense. Plus, some of these coins are, they look like they have holes punched in them, which is not American currency.
That's like Greek currency.
Right, so I don't know. We're putting way, way too much thought into this, for sure. The marketing team, this is how they're getting to us. Because they're making us overanalyze all their crap.
Listeners, if you're wondering what the podcast would be like after Book 54, you just got a little hint. It's just us rambling on and on about senseless aspects of the series.
Oh, and then did you notice the font change? Oh, my goodness.
Well, I mean, they do use multiple fonts all over this design, and it's pretty terrible.
I know. That was really just a example of our nitpickiness overall. You think it's my turn to read the back yet, or what? I think you read the last one. I'm pretty
After
sure.
the last 70 episodes, you can read the back of the book of this.
You know what? I love hearing about our listeners that like just find the podcast and then start binging, because I'm sure they're catching all the inconsistencies whenever we're wrong, because we never remember who read what.
It's possible I've read the last like 10 books, the back of the books.
Yeah, and it's possible that could also just be one of our running jokes, because I'm about to read this one.
Which podcast was it that we tried to read all three of us at the same time? We had a guest, and we tried to read the whole thing.
That was the episode of Megamorphs number 3 that failed with Kyle. Thank you for bringing that up.
Air.
Thank you. Well, thank you for bringing that up.
No, it's great. That's a bonus content. Post Book 54, you're going to get all our bloopers and mistakes.
No, you deleted that recording as far as I'm aware.
I told you that.
Marco's mom is back, but she's not Visor 1 anymore. Marco's not even sure if she's still a controller, but he's determined to find out, no matter what it takes, no matter what might happen. Marco wants his mom back. Jake, the other Animorphs, and Axe realize that Marco is under some serious stress, and that the situation with his mom could very well jeopardize everything they've worked for. Now, they also have to wonder if Marco will be the one to give away the secret of the Animorphs.
So this is interesting. I don't know how he's going to give away the secret of the Animorphs.
But just if Visor 1 or ex-Visor 1, geez, let's call her what she is, ex-Visor 1. Because they don't call her that. They still call her Visor 1, even though she's not.
Well, they call her Visor 1 and Visor right after this, too.
Yeah, well, she's not, okay?
Well,
people need to recognize.
I don't know. Anyway, go ahead with your talk.
I don't know what I was even talking about now.
Well, I was going to say it's interesting, not to spoil the book, but it's interesting that the book implies that we're dealing with a unreliable narrator in Marco, because the book says, or the back of the book says, he's not even sure if she's still a controller, but he's determined to find out. No matter what it takes, no matter what might happen, Marco wants his mom back. He continually tells us throughout the entire book that he's determined to finish the mission. It's going to be hard, yes, but he's going to do what's right for the mission. And the back of the book saying, no, we know what's really going on. And that's revealed at the end. So that means Marco's an unreliable narrator in this book because he's lying to us, the reader.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I didn't think of it from that angle, sure.
Well, that's one of my favorite book concepts. I really like that. So interesting to see it.
Sure, because
you
genuinely were left wondering, what he was going to do versus how he was talking about it all throughout.
Exactly. And you knew those feelings were there just because of the way the book reads, but still, it's an angle I didn't even look at until just now.
The author wishes to thank Elise Donner, who worked on this one. Elise Donner. Is that
one of our Patreons?
Good on ya. No, that's the ghostwriter for this book.
I know.
Clever. So diving right in, I guess. I mean, the first chapter, as usual, is your typical fillery kind of recappy situation in which we learn all about Marco's mommy drama, and all of that's recapped. And it's good to know if it's been a while since we've had one of these Visor 1 books, actually. So a little recap doesn't hurt. Like the whole sailing incident? Who remembered that?
Yeah.
Huh?
Well, I remember that because, I'm a fan of the series. But,
of course, me too, yeah.
And it's very prominent and literally one of my favorite books of the series, Visor. I mean, this book could literally lead right into Visor. And I don't believe it does. I think we did a research on that, and it's another book that does, but the ending of this book could lead straight into the trial of Visor 1. So... which goes into the circumstances of her disappearance as Marco's mom.
Yeah, exactly. So, whether or not you need that, you get it. He basically recaps everything, and it just kind of, he sets off this chain of events where, largely in part due to coincidence, he's heading downtown instead of going to school like he should be. And, plot literally runs into him in this opening chapter here.
Yeah, these are one of those instances you got to think that the Elemis or somebody's moving some pieces around to make this confrontation happen. Hell, it could be, another, like a sub-Visor or someone within the Yerks that is tracking Visor 1. And you got to think it's got to be one of the omnipotent beings, because, you got to know who the Animorphs are, you got to know the humans, you got to know that Marco's going to skip school that day.
There's so many factors in play.
It's too coincidental, though. It's too coincidental, though, at the same time.
Well, dealing with coincidences is one thing that we've learned to just do on this podcast. So regardless, we've got Marco in this situation where he happens to bump into his mom, or his mom bumps into him. Not to go full tangent, like right here at the beginning of the podcast, but I'd almost like to see the book where this whole situation is handled by another Animorph running into to Marco's mom, and how they handle that, and if they tell him or not, or if they try to do the mission behind his back, or that would be really interesting and would deal with the coincidence angle a little bit. Oh yeah, especially if it were Axe.
If it were Axe,
Axe would want to just kill her on sight.
He'd kill her on sight, or he'd go straight to Prince Jake. Jake. I don't know why I'm calling Prince Jake. Or Rachel.
Prince Jake, please kill her.
Rachel would be interesting because, she's got the animosity with Marco, and, I think she would also look at the direct path to fix the situation and would try to hide it. I don't know. Or Tobias. This would be a great Tobias book as well.
Literally, you could swap the characters around in all sorts of different situations, and it'd be interesting, no matter who it was. But the opening couple chapters of this book really feels like just Marco's kind of spy mission as he follows X-Visor 1 around. He has to enter this building by morphing a human, which let's make a big deal out of in a sec. But he's also, morphing a fly in a crowded elevator and getting swept up into the ventilation shafts. And it's just a lot of running around.
I mean, this is why I like Marco books the most. The obvious thing for Marco is to say that his books are funnier or more clever and try to make a lot of jokes. I like Marco books because he's the Animorph that, next to like Jake, doesn't mess around. I mean, Rachel's all gung-ho in the middle of a fight, but she doesn't get in these situations for the most part unless she's trying to like help Tobias or to rescue a hawk or something. No,
Marco, Rachel's cliche, her go-to cliche is somebody's like cruel or abusive. She sneaks off to the side, morphs like elephant or bear, and just proceeds to ruin their day.
Marco, if you think of an entire team of Animorphs that are just based around Marco and his personality, they would be an effective force. I mean, they'll morph a human to get in here. They'll take this morph to get in here. They're ruthless. That's what makes Marco interesting and makes him develop as a character, because he starts out such a just, joke a minute scared kid. And now he's probably one of the scariest Animorphs in the way he'll use his powers and make decisions.
Yeah, there's a lot of great lines from this book too, and I've selected a choice few that I'm going to share with our listeners throughout.
Oh, but welcome back to Animorphs Theater.
Hey, you know what? People said they like it.
They did. They asked for it by name.
Well, listen up here. There's a little part that made me chuckle, in particular how relevant it was to the 90s and how stupid it is now. And it's where Marco is acquiring this guy named Mr. Grant, who is walking through security, and he's pretending that he's his son, and he's getting taken to work with his father. So he's acquiring him, and he's kind of in this stupid trance as they're walking through. And the line from the book is, "I looked up at Mr. Grant with an Adam Sandler idiot grin."
Didn't he pull his South Park hat down at some point too?
Oh yeah, I imagine the scene where he's in the elevator. He's in a crowded elevator. Visor 1 is kind of in the front. He's in the very far back, And yeah, he's wearing these kind of loose-fitting clothes and a hat, and he starts morphing fly.
Man,
really
I remember.
careless.
I remember when South Park became like it was obviously it was a huge TV show, but I remember when it became like this merchandising empire for a while there too, kind of like The Simpsons.
Oh yeah,
There's just South Park stuff everywhere.
heck yeah! I remember playing the N64 game that was like a first-person shooter.
Gosh. It was great. It was amazing, and it was just like, oh my gosh, they're cursing in a video game.
It was pretty rad for the late 90s or whenever that was.
It's just good times.
Let's see, where were we? What else do you want to talk about in this opening scene
this
here?
first part.
He finds his mom, obviously, and he gets out, and this section's pretty short. Really.
Yeah, it's just to make sure that we know that his mom's back. She's in hiding from the Yerks, which is interesting, and that Marco is already willing to take risks that he wouldn't normally to see what she's up to.
Of course, yeah, because right away he even states, I had to acquire this guy to get in, but I have no intention of morphing him. And then he does eventually when the situation calls for it, and then he morphs him again to get out later. So yeah, right off the bat, they're making huge sacrifices. Oh yeah, I want to end my sentence there.
Okay. It's just to get us into this setup, and it's really cool because you see Marco doing his own thing away from the rest of the team, which is actually pretty rare, and it sets up the story well for another Marco mom adventure.
We love our Marco mom adventures, even more so towards the end of the series.
Leads to I would say, more interesting scene where we get our normal at the barn, letting everybody know what he saw, what's going down, what they might or might not do about it. But before that, he goes to school, actually. And there's kind of a cool scene where he has to sort of evade Chapman. Yeah, Chapman's popped up again, kind of like the dance in The Sickness. Chapman's relevant again, slightly.
Yeah, he's been there in the background in a couple of these books. They're keeping him more relevant than Melissa, I'll say.
Yeah, she's off in boarding school.
Yeah, but then of course they got the scene at the barn, and as Marco's informing everyone, they're all very cautious about how they treat situations involving Visser 1, knowing Marco's situation. And I think Marco picks up on that, obviously, and that's why he's really uneasy around them.
Yeah, he's very defensive off the bat. And it's weird here. They've done this before, but I feel like this is a pretty high priority mission. I mean, Visser 1 is a big deal. Marco could go off the handle at any minute. They're all very aware of that. And yet, like they've done in several other books, the whole team's not going to go. Jake and Cassie are like, well, we got this homework to do, and I can't get out again.
Yeah, exactly. I actually like moments like this where we get a fractured team for a scene.
I do too, but this seems a higher priority mission that they would be like, okay, we're just going to have to take the hit, and we all need to go. Because, it's Visser 1. You shouldn't mess around with that. And with Marco, it's an explosion waiting to happen.
Yeah, and the way I see that is we've seen Jake become more and more of a leader. He really gives Marco a good talking to in this book. But I see this scene as a way for Jake to sort of test Marco's reliability. Of course, if it went south, it could have screwed everything up. But Marco handles it somewhat.
Yeah, and like you said, Jake gives a talking to Marco, and that's why I thought this scene was so interesting, because Jake gets dead serious, like real quick. These are two best friends who we see joking around more than anybody almost, and when Jake talks to him, he talks to him like he's going to have to take care of him if he doesn't take this seriously.
Oh, yeah, it's wonderful. And Marco says he basically felt like calling him sir there when they were talking. And, it's really interesting that Tobias and Axe, of course, are always available. They're always down for every mission. So Jake assigns leadership of this little subgroup to Tobias. I guess just to see how Marco would take it, how Marco would handle it.
I don't think he's testing Marco as much as you're implying. I think he knows Marco is dangerous in his mission, but he doesn't have a choice. He doesn't want to send Tobias and Axe alone. And I think putting Tobias in charge, I think Tobias is a little more responsible than the rest of the group. As far as, doing the right thing, keeping on track. Tobias has kind of lost his goofy kid edge and is willing to put forth a little more into the missions.
Sure. I mean, Tobias is the logical option for being a leader.
We don't see him put in a leadership role very often, but he does take care of things,
No, he has been a very reliable source for the team. And certainly, it wouldn't be a good idea letting Marco call the shots on a mission that is so close to him, obviously involving his mom.
Which is basically the theme of this book.
Yeah. And Marco eventually ends up taking the whole thing and taking the mission under his control anyway. But for what Jake did here, it was the right move.
Yeah, so you got them going on their own, heading back to Marco's mom's, office rental in the skyscraper.
Yeah, wherever she is.
Yeah, just downtown, whatever. You have them morphing, bird morphs going to the roof of this place, and then you get an action-packed roller coaster thrill ride of them cockroach morphing down some staircases on the rails.
Really,
cool.
but what it amounts to is your basic, morph and invade series of chapters where they run into some artificial barriers to get in their way. Like here in this instance, they fall off a railing and there's an angry employee stomping around trying to kill some roaches, which they happen to be.
Yeah, and once they get to Visitor's room, she's got a whole hologram set up, and they
holograms. It's if you want to get ahead in this series, you really got to master the holograms.
You do. Axe needs to build them some. They can't just keep going to the chi every 5 seconds to get their hologram action.
Well, apparently they can.
I mean, they're forced to, but I'm just saying there's better options. But no, they get in here and they find Visitor in a pretty interesting position.
Yeah, this is a really cool idea too, and this is one that I'm sure me and a lot of readers have wondered is like if you had a controller in this situation where they'd have to feed themselves Kandrona, but they didn't have anybody else around to hold their host body down, how would they do it? Well, here we find out.
The thing to me that I don't know, I mean, I guess it could be like password locked, but you'd think the host body could do anything the Yeerk could do to release themselves from the...
I think they said it was psychically linked, kind of like Thoughtspeak was, or it used the same kind of thing as Thoughtspeak. So it only would unlock when the Yeerk was back inside the host body, and then the brainwaves were correct or something.
Here's what I don't understand, though. They said, Marco even said that he wishes he could have, like, right then and there, like, gotten her away. But he said that the Yeerk, because it's linked to the device, he wouldn't be able to do it quick enough, like, release her before the Yeerk would go back in. But couldn't you literally just stick your hand between the water and the ear, like, just walk over there and then quickly put your hand just blocking the ear canal, and then take your time figuring out how to release her?
Maybe, but the way it sounded was she's literally strapped down to this huge Kandrona thing, with her part of her head submerged in the murk, and it sounded to me like if he got any closer, it would make some kind of noise, or it would somehow alert the Yeerk inside the thing, and she would just instantly go right back up into his mom.
I guess it's even possible that a Yeerk doesn't need to leave the ear canal completely to soak up Kendrona rays.
Sure, maybe it can just stick its end out and, like sticking your feet in a pond. Just dip your toes in.
Who knows?
Absorb the Kendrona from there.
Yeah, or at least stay super close. I don't know. Anyway, but so they're trying to figure out what to do. He has a
real internal debate about whether or not. I mean, when he sees her right away, he's gonna go to her, but his Tobias and Axe have to talk him down from doing that.
Yeah. And that was always going to be the threat of Marco being on this mission to begin with. So
yeah, and it's a very good hint at that, he's definitely a liability because seeing his mom sets off that emotional trigger.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's not too long while they're trying to figure out what they should do with this new information they've gotten and hanging out there that...
the Benny Hill sketch starts.
Yeah, Visitor 3's troops attack.
Yes, they just bust down the door, run in shooting. They don't know who they're fighting or what's going on.
What are you doing in here?
The music.
What are you kids doing here?
The music starts up.
Yeah, just little. They wanted to move things along quickly in this book, and you see that several times.
Right. Well, it's a pretty cool scene because as they're trying to hold off these controllers that are obviously very surprised at who they're fighting, they're having this conversation with Visor 1 or Ex-Visor 1 about, whether or not they're going to just flat out kill her or capture her or what they're going to do. They have a really nice little chat here. About how Visor 3 in particular is really hell-bent on killing her. And she herself is just working on a scheme to discredit him and try to off him as well. So right off the bat, our team knows that they can pit the two Visors against each other like they always want to do. That's like their go-to plan.
Hey, I'm going to suggest something a little strange here, and this is not to be edited out. This is talking to you, talking to our listeners, and let's see if you agree. If you disagree, we'll continue on as normal. But talking about this book and going into the nuts and bolts of it makes me realize that while I did enjoy this book, and I'll get into that in my review, really the inner workings and the plot itself are very straightforward, very moving along the rails. Point A, point B, which might have been the point.
Yeah.
But I think the most interesting thing about this book is talking about Marco and his mom and the character study of how he develops and what his general thinking are. So if you'd like to venture off with me, I think I'd rather just talk about the book in broader terms and not follow the plot along, because the plot's very simple and not very interesting to just overview.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can cap it here in a couple of sentences, basically. I mean, the whole thing revolves around Marco, who hijacks this mission to work with Visor 1, and you don't know whether he's leading her towards her doom or if he's going to somehow help her in the end, but they're walking the line here between revealing the entire team and giving away all the Animorph secrets, and maybe coming out on top against Visor 1 and Visor 3.
And Visor 1's main motivation is she's trying to... she's basically been caught too many times with either talking to the Animorphs or coercing them to do something. And basically Visor 3 has convinced the Council that she is in collusion with the enemy, and she's kind of been deranked, and she's, like you said, ex-Visor 1 now. So her plan is to actually find the free Hork-Bajir colony, which she's found out about, and destroy it, and by revealing them, make Visor 3 look ridiculous and shame him to the Council, and possibly
they're over convoluted plots to ruin each other.
Yeah, which is normal, but yeah, like I said, I'd rather just talk about the journey there and like what Marco's going through, because I think this does raise some really good points about Marco, in the sense that, I mean, I haven't seen in Animorphs yet they've all had themes, they've all had what they've been about, but it's very few and far between that you get a character's line of thinking simplified into a very pure view. and Marco is revealed to have this very brilliant mind that sees a problem and a solution and a line to get from point A to point B. And there's
a line of dialogue in there specifically about that.
Yeah, it's a great graphic to show you what he is to the team, what he can be, and what he is in this situation, and how he has to stick to that. Because if he ventures off that line even a little bit, it's just a kid who misses his mom. And so that's what this book is really about. I mean, that's what it's revolving about. All this plot stuff is, I mean, you know, we can dig deep into plots of some of these books, and for me to say we should just talk about the rest of the book, that shows that this really was a point A to B book with trying to tell a different story.
Yeah, in fact, I've got a great quote directly from Marco. People don't understand the word ruthless. They think it means mean. It's not about being mean. It's about seeing the bright, clear line that leads from A to B. The line that goes from motive to means, beginning to end. Boom. That's Marco.
Yeah.
In a nutshell.
No ethics, no moral quandaries. Basically the opposite of whatever Cassie's brain is doing. It's clear and present and dangerous. And it's great. It's great to see Marco struggle throughout this book. I mean, he's walking along a cliffside with his mom at one point, just wondering if he should push her off. That's his mom. I mean, whether control or not, even when Jake was dealing with Tom as a Yeerk, we haven't seen this kind of internal struggle of her being right there. She's within reach, and he can't do anything.
Yeah, it's a much different situation, obviously, than Jake and Tom's. And you know, I'm really hoping in the next book in particular, I know we get more Jake and Tom interaction. And I haven't read the next book, and I'm looking forward to that because right now their dynamic is a little stale at this point.
It just hasn't been brought up in a while, really.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really important
so
to, like,
much
the
emphasis
first book
on this Marco and his mom relationship,
which leads to interesting places too. And like I said, this book, I think this book does the Marco mom relationship better than the Lyron plot with the hammerhead sharks and everything. I think I like their depiction in this one way more, and they're actually discussing things with each other, and the reveal at the end. All of that is done incredibly well.
Yeah, this book is very similar to that one, and there's really no contest. This one is the superior book by far. I
disagree that they're that similar though, because the last book with them together, it was Marco dealing with the idea of his mom as a controller separately from the actual plot of the book, whereas this one they're directly working with each other, and Marco has to get his feelings out of the way in the moment. There's a large stretch of the book where it's just Marco and his mom by themselves. So I think that's how they're really different.
Yeah, but I gauge it by at the end of the book, the results are very much kind of the same. Marco is left in a state of wondering, where my mom?
Where my mom at?
Essentially, that's what these books deliver to us. Is they give us a little bit of an update to this existing drama, but no satisfying conclusion.
Yeah, and I think it does push things forward a little bit with the fact that Visor One's plans do come to fruition as far as she knows. She does reveal the Hork-Bajir colony and destroys it on camera to her captive audience. But the ending with Marco basically saying, "Bye, Mom," and revealing to her that the Animorphs are, at least there's one of them that's human. That's big. That's, for the series, that's a big mythology point of the first big, besides David, the first big letting in someone else into their secret. And it's Visor freaking One.
Yeah, I guess. It does come right after Aftren, so second Yeerk.
She's
second
just some,
Yeerk to know.
She's just some Yeerk. This is Visor One. This is a big,
Visor One, recognize.
Even though Aftran knows Cassie and knows that they're humans or whatever, it's a lot different from Visor One basically coming to all these ideas immediately when she hears her son's voice in her head saying goodbye, Mom. The coincidence of her son being one of the Andalite bandits and all these threads that immediately get tied up in her head. I mean, I would take an entire book of her thought process from the top of that cliff to the whatever landing she ended up getting. Because I bet it was pretty insane.
Well, first of all, he said, "I love you," not "goodbye, Mom." Those are his.
That's all he says at the end? That's all he says at the end?
Yeah, he just says, "I love you."
Man, I was on an emotional journey
from
that
that,
the authors didn't even...
Yeah, exactly. Well, when you just supply your own memories of dialogue and whatnot, I know how your mind gets carried away. You start changing things around, adding things. Yeah, I know you.
No. Okay. He says, hold on. She clutched at bloody tracks on her cheeks. She staggered back. Mom, I cried. You don't think that was... No,
he did shout. He did shout "Mom" once. Yeah,
I think that was public. He does just say "I love you," but she immediately says "the boy." It's the boy.
Yeah.
So she gets that it's Marco immediately, and then he screams "Mom" right after that. So I didn't confuse it that bad.
No. Okay. I guess you didn't.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that I want to mention before I forget.
Just like Visor 1 was trying to shame Visor 3.
Yes, publicly to our Council of 13 patrons. Do we have 13?
Oh, we
can have a Council of 13.
We have 9. If we get a few more, we can form a Council of 13.
Maybe that should be the next big tier. Who knows? What was
big
I saying?
spenders.
Yeah. Oh, the ending kind of mirrors the ending of that previous Marco Visor 1 book, in which Rachel is the one who sees Visor 1's getaway method, whatever it is. It might be a submarine, might be a bug fighter. Rachel notices it. And then in the last chapter, we've got her coming along to tell Marco once again, "Hey, saw that thing. Thing. You know what that might mean."
And this is a ghostwriter too, so...
There's going to be another Visor 1 book. And we're still going to call her Visor 1.
Yeah. Well,
and I know for a fact the next one is The Proposal. And I don't know if she comes back in that one or not.
I don't think it's that one. I think that even if there's a couple books between this one and Visor, I think Visor takes place right after this one.
I could be wrong. It's been a while since I read Visor.
As far as the events that happen, you could potentially read this one and go straight into Visor because she's all beat up. She's still, on trial for crimes, whatever crime she might have committed.
Sure, maybe it stretches book to book.
I don't know, but I'm just saying you could potentially lead into it. But I think I am wrong. I think there is another book that leads directly into it. So I don't know. Okay,
well, where do you see this formatless show going now then, Mr. Let's can the formula? Because there are a lot of scenes that I want to talk about within the book. That's what I enjoy talking about these books is breaking down all these scenes that these authors have compiled together.
I do too.
And really analyzing it. That's what I get off on.
I see. I enjoy that as well, and I'm not suggesting this for every episode. Just this one, the plot is so... You can set it aside so easily. It's not what's important to this book. It's not what this book's trying to convey to you. And I do like the little scenes where she's like, when they're talking her through buying the equipment for where she's going, and they're executing this plan.
Yeah, there's a lot of like little scenes, and you mentioned it's point A to point B plot line where you're very much with them. That all kicks off when Marco kind of hijacks the mission and is like, okay, we're going to kind of cooperate with her and steer her around and call attention to her by all the other known controllers. They make a big deal to walk her past known controllers, especially in the mall, like you said, when they're buying equipment with her. So you see Marco making things up on the fly as he's, desperate to maintain this control over his mom and what she's doing.
It's just like the third part of the story that Jake was supposed to be, but him and Cassie got themselves blowed up.
No kidding. How convenient.
That's Marco having to improvise and take literally the hardest part of the mission and the part that he was most likely to fail. But I do want to talk about, I honestly think a recap, I don't think it'd lead to any fun tangents. I don't think it would anyone get anything out of it who hasn't read this book. We would literally just be recapping the plot of the book in an uninteresting way. But I do want to talk about the ending of this book and how bombastic it is. When you get to the end, the whole sky opens up to reveal like cruiser ships we've never seen before and Visitors Armada and
it gets a little cartoony crazy for a minute there.
Yeah, and then Eric's what kind of holograms can Eric project if he can make them think that an entire valley is right in front of them?
And that it, is inhabited by like all these Hork-Bajir that are just like doing their thing, and then B, blowing up and on fire and like dying. Like he had to simulate, a Hork-Bajir running around on fire, dying. With this little hologram show.
It gets a little dark, but yeah, it's an interesting turn for a book that, like you said earlier, has been mostly talking and them discussing things to turn into this huge like movie blockbuster at the end. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and it does something that very similar to the Megamorphs book that we just talked about. How in the end they're kind of in this very vague struggle where it's like all the action is happening here and our characters are moving along this route. Well, the ending of this book felt very much like when they're walking her up the mountain. It's Marco's freaking out because obviously Jake and Cassie are supposedly dead. Axe is like off doing his own thing, he's out getting supplies and he's not back yet. And it's just, things aren't going well for him. And he's just trying so hard to focus on the mission. And at one point, he can't even come to terms with telling Tobias that Jake and Cassie are probably dead. He's just like, Visor 1 got him.
Yeah,
are they captured? No, I don't think so.
Think about the state of his mind that he's so upset with his mother and what's going on in the mission. He doesn't even grieve for his best friend dying. He's convinced that they're dead. So that's how crazy Marco is in this book. And you could chalk that up a little bit to a ghostwriter handling it and doing whatever.
No, you know what? You could say he literally just saw it happen a book ago. So
that's true.
So he's a little bit desensitized to his best friend being killed right in front of him.
Yeah, but I would like to just go ahead, unless there's a specific topic that you've already that you wanted to talk about specifically. I think we can jump straight into our reviews.
You can try, man, but there's scenes that I want to talk about.
Then talk about them right now.
Things I want to bring up.
Then bring them up.
You keep pushing it along, like, why don't we jump into our reviews? Why don't we do our plugs right here and now?
I'm just saying, this is, I think, the interesting parts of this book we've hit on already, for the most part. I don't think there's much meat to these bones.
For the most part, but, I mean, you're skipping out on little scenes like...
Then talk about them!
When have we ever had Marco, who's hijacked his first mission and is trying to decide, like, we need a good morph for this thing. What are we going to do? Well, the same thing we always do is we go see Cassie. Except this time, it's the middle of the night. He's doing something that directly goes against Jake's orders. And what did he think? Cassie wasn't going to go straight to Jake and tell him what they were up to? And then, we get this very kind of silly and out of place acquiring scene at the gardens where he's going after goats and he gets kicked. And this is one of the funniest scenes from the book, by the way, is when he's in there trying to acquire the goats. And the goats are obviously pretty aggressive and they're coming at him, and he's like, Tobias flew away to safety. Axe, nimbly jumped away on some rocks, and then me, I was a human, so I couldn't get away.
See, this is what I was talking about.
Obviously, knock him out.
This is what I was talking about. This is why I wanted to kind of just talk about the broader themes and stuff of this book, because I read this book in the past. I like this book. I consider this one of the better books. And just talking about it again, talking about the nuts and bolts of the plot, is lowering my score as we go.
That's darn right. That's what we're supposed to do here. Quit fantasizing in La La Land.
I'm not fantasizing. Great movie, by the way. I'm not fantasizing. I'm just saying that I think the actual plot of this book is the least interesting thing about it.
This is definitely one that you have to read to get full enjoyment of. And yeah, you know what? Probably if we were to sit here and tell you exactly and then they followed Visitor 1 around the store and then Rachel caused a big scene, but she turned it around. Sure, that might be boring.
It's not entertaining to discuss, even though the book itself is entertaining to read, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I just don't know how that translates to you talking about how great it is, if you don't even want to discuss the things that make it great.
I'm trying to make it great again. All right.
Well, you know what? To be honest with you, I mean, we've pretty much covered everything as far as what happens in the plot. I mean, they march her up the mountain.
I think there are going to be some books that we discuss from here on out that need a briefer overview, is what I'm saying, because there are incredibly interesting. I'm sure the Atlantis book, even though neither of us have read it, has some really awesome stuff we're going to want to talk about, but it may not need an entire walkthrough of the plot. That's all.
I'm sure. No, I think the only thing that we didn't explicitly mention was that Marco looked poised to actually kill his mom. I think he might have done it had Jake not conveniently reappeared, proving that he's alive, of course, and knocking him down. And I loved the scene where he's holding him down, and all he's saying is just, "Hold on, man, hold on." That really hit hard. And you didn't mention that,
I know, but that's what I was trying to talk about. But the ending has some of the best parts of this book.
Yeah, by far. And really, that's it. Visitor 1 supposedly escapes to fight another day, and it's wrapped up.
Yeah. So, in general, I mean, like you said, there's good scenes in it. I just think this is one, and I won't say this very often in a book-related podcast, but this is one you kind of need to read and make up your mind on how you feel about it, because we're not going to convince you either way, and we're definitely not going to entertain you talking about the plot, like some other books actually will.
It's possible. So I don't know. Are you going to launch into your review? What's your review?
No, I'm gonna make you do your review first now, because you're so trying to stay away from it.
Well, that's okay. I'm perfectly fine with discussing this. So, you mentioned, of course, that it's very cut and paste, A to B. This is the problem, and then we're going to follow our characters dealing with it. There's not a whole lot of dipping into the sci-fi tropes that they tend to do in some of these stories. It's a very human story, more so than we see, throughout the series, and these ones generally always are. But, I mentioned its similarities to the previous encounter with Visitor 1. I mentioned how I felt somewhat disappointed at the lack of closure again at the end. It felt very much like, well, this is the bit of story to tide you over until she comes back and we do something significant again, hopefully. I don't honestly remember what the next book involving her is, so I'm looking forward to reading that one, of course. This one is definitely one of the best written ones that we've encountered in quite a while. And you know what's funny? We've probably said that about, the past couple episodes, I'm sure.
Yeah, the ghostwriting books are still there to form at this point in my mind. They're doing well as far as just the general writing.
I'd really like to believe that the Applegates had something to do with, editing the manuscripts or at least giving their express approval.
I'd say at this point, at book 30, they're still a lot more involved than they might be in the next 10 books. You know?
Well, although in the back of my book here, I've got an ad for Everworld, a new series from the author of Animorphs. And I didn't get to read that one, but I remember thinking at the time, like, wow, they're doing another series and they're still running this one? These people must work nonstop, which I understand, I think is the case, or was the case at that point. Now, what was I saying in my review? Something about this book being decent, I think.
I don't know. It's your review.
Like you said, okay, this is a very good example of one that the reader really should make up their mind whether they like it or not, because it's a lot less sci-fi, like I said. You've still got them doing their morphs and going on these kind of missions, and it's a lot more like stealth and infiltration than we've seen in the past, which is kind of cool. It's nice to have a book every so often that's kind of more grounded in realism, and you definitely get that here. One of the funniest scenes I think we've had in a while is like the whole team pretending to be these arrogant Andalites as they're ordering Visor 1 around. Is just wonderful. They all play the part so well, and they're absolutely hilarious when they're pretending like that. It's a good thing Axe wasn't around to hear them for most of it. I don't know if he'd have found it as funny.
I like when they talk about the plan. Axe is like, I'm borderline offended right now.
Yeah, I'm sure he gets one little quip in, but they really try to keep the ruse going for quite a while. And it's another really interesting to see Visor 1 as she kind of starts to figure it out, and they're like talking back and forth, and Marco, accidentally lets a stupid reference slip, and she understands from that, like,
pop
something's up. Andalites don't make pop culture references. And it's a really dumb mistake. So let's see. If I'm forming an opinion about this damn thing, I remember feeling really good about it after I read it. And then as I was forming my summary and thinking it over and really thinking about everything that went into this book and what we get from it, I don't know that it does too much new in a sense. I'm really conflicted over how I feel about this, and I'm sure you're probably going to give it a 5. Okay, let's be honest here. And I'm torn between a 5 and a 4, because as much as I enjoyed this book, I'm really wondering, does it deserve that honor of sitting up on that 5 bracket? Mm-hmm. Because in the end of the day, it maybe did a little bit to advance some character development with Marco and Jake and Visor 1, but did it do much else? I don't know. So let's see. Could I recommend this? Would I say this is necessary? Man, I'm really conflicted on this. I've never been so conflicted.
Oh my gosh, your reviewers were meandering more than parts of this book did.
Well, that's the problem, my friend, with recording these dang things so long after we read the book, because we had plans to record earlier this week. Through a bunch of circumstances, they fell through, unfortunately. But we're recording this now on the 22nd of February, a date that is significant, by the way, as Coleman, I'm sure, knows.
Yeah, it's your you and your wife's anniversary.
Oh, somebody checked Facebook today. Way to go.
No, I remember the event. I was there the day you married. I was your best man.
Absolutely. So not only is it significant, just in general for us, it is significant to the podcast because this was 3 years ago. I think the inaugural year of Thoughtspeak, was it not?
Yep, I think so.
That we started it, yeah. And
we put out 6 episodes since then.
Our dedicated listeners may remember back a couple years ago to when we were talking about Coleman's coming up to Minnesota. I believe I was trying to give my review, and you know what? Because I'm so certain that you're going to give this a 5 and highly praise it, I'm going to praise it slightly less, and I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 gushads.
Wow, I didn't know we were basing our reviews off of what the other person thought, but I guess that's just a lowering in quality of the podcast in general.
Little do you know that every episode of this show is a game of cat and mouse between you and I.
Your integrity is bought and paid for, sir, is what I'm saying.
And now because of your random skipping around, I have lost all track of which quotes I was going to read when.
I promise we will not make that a regular thing. I thought it was relevant to the book, and I can't believe you didn't pick up why. You think I'm going to give this book a 5? I'm not going to come close to a 5. This book it's like I said, it's one I read way back in the day, and I really enjoyed it. And I think the main reason I really enjoyed it, because I was missing a lot of the Marco and his mom books. I had not read them, so this is like one of the few I read before I read Visor. So that was big to me, and that was important. But like we had said, we got a lot of these action beats, we got a lot of these character beats in earlier books. And while I do think that this one does them better than the other books, we've already seen this story for the most part. It's interesting, it's a fun read, but the fact that I didn't even want to talk about the plot tells you a lot about it. The plot's not important. The most interesting things about this book are Marco and his vision of how he should deal with his mom, what would make him a good Animorph, a good soldier. He wants to be ruthless. That's what's interesting about Marco in this book, is that he wants to be that ruthless soldier who can win the war with no emotion. And he fails miserably at the end of this book, which is incredibly interesting and better than all the other Marco and his mom books combined. But at the end of the day, this is a sci-fi kind of action-y drama book series, and the plot itself just kind of moves forward. And to that, I have to knock off a star and a star here for just not indulging in Marco's psyche and what he should really be doing in some of these scenes that he just skips over based on his own thought process that we read in the book. So. And the coincidences are extreme in this book. I mean,
astronomical.
Yeah, we talk about them a lot, but in this one, they're just like, I'm sorry, you're not even holding our hand as a reader at this point. You're shoving us forward to get to your plot that isn't that interesting. So, unlike what you thought, while I still think there are incredibly important aspects of this book, it is an interesting read. You get one of the better Marco books. I think it's got enough of mistakes that I can only give this 3 out of 5 Empire Nova class starships.
Oh, baloney! 3 out of you did that just because I went first and I gave my rating. I called yours.
You can claim that all you want, but I had this rating right after I read the book.
You wanted to kiss this book's ass.
I loved this book. This is one of my childhood books, but I did not come with that. I didn't come with that score in the last 15 minutes. I've had that score for almost a week and a half now. So, and I even had.
No, I refuse to think that I think higher of this book than you. My rating's a 2 now.
Unlike you, I don't change my review based on what the other person is thinking.
Well, you should
take that. No, you're at a 4 out of 5, and that's the score that's going to be marked down in history in this podcast.
You know what else? I want to say? I just realized lowers it in my opinion. So, Visor 3. It's been a while since we've had a really good Visor 3 showdown, and this book again really didn't add anything to it because he morphs this generic chameleon crab alien thing. And you know what's generic and you know what's rushed? When they don't even give it a name, an alien name.
Yeah.
I always like it when they're like, oh, that's the Chloroplof or whatever.
Yeah.
I had to use Gashad, which is another Yerk word.
Yeah.
If you want to know what it means, kids, read the book.
Yeah. But it's just it shows that I think this was the start of the more hastily written ghostwritten books, and technically this is a good author they got to help them with ghostwriting, but I feel like this book was a little rushed. I feel like it's pandering, and I think the overall concepts probably came straight from the authors themselves, and they just had someone else do the legwork for them. So not a bad book by any means. I think this is a necessary read, especially to lead into Visor and stuff, but I have my problem.
Well, I think what it really suffered from was trying to pace the Marco with his mom, plot, and literally everything else. Because that's kind of how I figured when I was reading this book. It was like either Marco's, working with his mom or following her or talking to her, or there's other things happening with the other characters.
Here's the big letdown of this book. You could take out Marco's mom and make it like a Jake book or, like I said, Tobias book or something. Not Tobias book. He's in Hawk more half the time. Or Rachel book or whatever. And switch out Visor 1 for just a random Yerk that they want to like collude with. And you could keep the plot essentially exactly the same. You just have to change the ending.
Sure, it could have been with Cassie and her, trying to decide whether or not she should kill this person.
Yeah,
just,
anyone who has a grudge, any like sub-visor or
which is
like,
basically what the departure was, right?
Yeah, the departure was a much more interesting version of this book, minus, like I said, all the Marco and his mom stuff, which is what makes this book even worth a read. So anyway, that's my thoughts. I'm sorry they were so surprising to you and threw you off, but I've been thinking about it for a while now. So.
Well, you know what I've been thinking about for a while? This one last quote that I want to read to you, this line that stood out to me when I was reading this. It was just very beautiful. And it's Marco, and he's, of course, thinking, as he does, as he's, traveling. And he says, "We would meet, Visor 1 and I. We would meet on a mountaintop, and I would end it all there." Boom. Yeah. Little insight into what's going on in Marco's mind.
Yeah,
it was just very poetic there in the end too, as they're like ascending this mountain, and as you said, like all of a sudden the skies part, and there's like giant Star Destroyer sized spaceships like hanging out in the sky. They're all battling each other for some reason. X-Visor 1 still has forces that can fight. Visor 3's got all of his people there. We got a lovely scene of Visor 3 just being a flat-out dick to one of his troops again as he lobs off somebody's arm.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. Like, the actual writing of this book is perfectly fine. It's just the structure and the broad themes that weigh it down. But,
no, I get it. I mean, you hate it. Sure, 3 out of 5.
3 out of 5 is hatred now. Changes a lot of books in our that we've already gone through. But anyway, I want to hear what our readers really think of this book. I'd like to get a few emails on this and see where everybody, because I feel like it's probably pretty divided. I think it might be overall in the positive, but I bet there's some people who recognize the flaws in this story.
Sure, or people that I'm sure just are aware of the Marco mom drama and realize that this book doesn't really do anything to bring any finality to that situation, and so I'm sure it's one that gets skipped over quite often.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, so anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. We try to put out this now premium content for you. And I'm really excited about getting through these a little quicker and getting episodes out quicker. I think that's well within the realm of our lives now, and it doesn't seem like your child is like pulling the mic out of your face or anything. So
not currently.
That's good.
And I think the bigger elephant in the room. I don't know if we addressed this at the beginning of the episode. I don't think we did. But did you mention your rulership over a
no, we didn't.
particular online kingdom?
Yeah, so I'm now a moderator of our Animorphs, where you will see this episode posted. I don't think I'm going to sticky it to the top. I think that would be abusing my power.
Potentially, but at the same time, if you did it for all the podcasts, if the other Animorphs podcasts that are particularly popular right now, if they also posted to r/Animorphs, which they absolutely should. We've been saying for a while now, it'd be great to have a little bit more interaction between all of us as a community. So if Morph Club, you want to step up? You want to join r/Animorphs in the discussion?
Well,
come on over.
What might be cool, what I could do maybe is I'm running a monthly fan art Animorphs contest right now on our Animorphs, where the theme of the month is dome ships, Andalite dome ships. I think some pretty cool fan art could come out from that.
I really, you know what? I got to say, I really like having themed fan art submissions. Because just saying, it's an Animorphs fan art drive or whatever they call them, it just doesn't inspire creativity, I don't think. And
and you don't get new artwork when you just have it be broad. So
sure, I'm hoping we get a lot of creativity and a lot of creative people that want to share their ideas, even if they're sketches on pencil and paper. It'd still be cool.
Yeah, but you've inspired me. I think it might be cool to actually have like a, just to keep them all in one place, have like a sticky post at the top that's the latest episodes of all the podcasts. You can put a link to Morph Club in there, to Thoughtspeak, Hindsight, all the different podcasts for your Animorphs listening needs. If
they have submittable links, I'm not sure how it works with other podcasts. I'm not even quite sure how it works with ours.
I mean, we link to our website.
Of course, but do these other ones have websites? I'm not sure.
You have to have a website to have a podcast.
It's hardly any of our business to know.
Yeah, and you could use SoundCloud or something like that, and you just link to that.
Yep, we've tried that before.
Yeah, but anyway, so yeah, maybe I'll think about that. But I promise to be a cruel but fair leader on there. There will be justice, and it will be harsh. But I'm also directly responsible for all the cool new pictures and themes and graphic design that we've added to the subreddit. So you can both thank me and fear me.
Well, who elected you? I didn't vote for you.
It's because our Animorphs is not a democracy.
Did you get the Monty Python reference?
I did. At best, it's a fascist republic.
Sure. On that note, we're gonna have a lot of exciting changes to come. Not least of all which, I want to come up with a proper outro here, one that kind of consolidates all of our plugs. Because as always, we've got to mention you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Thoughtspeak. Thoughtspeakcast?
We're on Twitter.
Or just Thoughtspeak? I'm not even sure. See, we'll have an official outro, and it won't even be a problem anymore because it'll be recorded.
Exactly. If you just search Thoughtspeak on Facebook, we'll come up pretty quick. On Twitter, we're at Morphcast, and you can always email us at thoughtspeakcast@gmail.com. That's our Gmail, and we get plenty of email on there that we read, and I think we're getting better about reading stuff. Again, you can find our posts and everything on our Animorphs, where a lot of the discussion is had. I really like discussion on there. Reddit's just a pretty easy forum for discussing the ins and outs of our episode and the books we're talking about. And now you can go to our Patreon, which is patreon.com/Thoughtspeak. If you want to donate to us there and subscribe as a patron, you only pay when we release content, specifically episodes, and it really helps us out. I mean, that's going to lead to us possibly having a new website and doing some really interesting things within the community, and possibly some much bigger things too. So just check us out there and see if you're interested in becoming a subscriber.
And don't forget to check us out on iTunes, where you can rate us and review us and rant and rave us and whatever you want.
Yeah, check us out on iTunes. That's where most people, I say, would listen to our show.
See, that's why we got to get these plugs nice and consolidated, condensed down. We play that, and then we can have a little couple minutes here to jive between us. For instance, I'd like to point out that next we'll be talking book 31, The Conspiracy, which is a book that I haven't read, as I've mentioned, and I'm kind of interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that book as well. We're getting into a lot of books now that I've just never read. Some of them I haven't even heard.
Speaking of heard, we all just heard your dog, but that's okay. We're pro canine here on the Thoughtspeak podcast.
For anyone interested, I just got a new dog a few weeks ago, and she's that was her. That was her and my other dog trying to figure out what my wife was doing.
They're just being dogs. That's cool. Mm-hmm. We like dogs. Okay,
pro dog.
Well, this one kind of fizzled out.
Well, no, I think we've got some interesting stuff, and with the Patreon and new things coming, I think this is an exciting time to be a ThoughtSpeak listener. So we'll leave you with that, and got some great books coming down the line. So hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'm Coleman.
Absolutely, and I've been Mitchell, and we all want you to have a fantastic time, and we'll see you in the next episode.